Today we're talking about protein powder ice cream in the Ninja CREAMI, and as you can see, I've tried a lot of different protein powders here. I've got my vegan ones on the left and my whey-based ones here on the right, and I'm going to be kind of telling you about some of the stuff I've learned trying out all these different products in this machine, and give you some takeaways, some recipes, and hopefully help you find maybe 2 or 3 tubs of protein that you're going to have that are going to be kind of like your go-to proteins in this machine, rather than kind of amassing a collection like this, because this is not normal. I do finish all of these. There's actually one exception. I don't think I'll be finishing this one up here. It was not very good in this machine, but I'm going to also show you a couple things. Is if you have a powder that's maybe not working the best for you, a couple ways that you can kind of polish that recipe to to make it a little bit better. Add a few things to cover a flavor that might not be working for you. So if that stuff sounds interesting to you, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be doing more recipes that are about using protein powders in this machine, but also I want to bring more like raw ingredient type recipes to the channel as well. So make sure you're subscribed for that, and we'll get right into our topics. A question I commonly see is, why does protein powder make for good ice cream? And to really answer that, you need to know what goes into normal ice cream. So normal ice cream is going to have milk, cream, sugar, and some flavoring in it. And protein powders have a few of those already knocked out. So it's going to have your flavoring if you're buying a flavored protein powder. And it's also got the sugar or the sweeteners in it. And there are a lot of artificial sweeteners in these protein powders. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on in the video. So that's 2 of our 4 ingredients. And then our other ingredients, milk and cream. So milk, you can use whatever milk you want. It could be dairy milk, it could be almond milk, coconut, oat milk, kind of whatever you want, or any combination of them. The cream part, though, is kind of really where I feel like the CREAMI works its magic. Is somehow with low-fat ice cream, it can still make it taste really smooth, and a lot of that comes from the ice crystals in your ice cream. And protein powder is also going to have some stabilizers in it, and stabilizers, what they do is they control the free water in your mixture. And what that means, it's going to make a more viscous liquid, and that liquid is going to freeze with smaller ice crystals. Now, sometimes there's not enough stabilizer in your powder, and oftentimes I'll add a little bit of stabilizer. And my favorite one is xanthan gum, and I add that to my mixture before I freeze it. And so again, that's going to make for smaller ice crystals, and smaller ice crystals are going to make for creamier ice cream. Is protein powder healthy? Well, I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist, so please keep that in mind. And if there is a nutritionist or doctor in your life, definitely talk to them on this stuff. And I don't always feel like that is the most practical advice for people. I don't talk to my doctor about every little change I make in my life. And what I do, though, is I do try to reflect on how this stuff is impacting me. So if you're eating this new ice cream and you have any digestive discomfort, any bloating or cramps or something as a result, definitely look to change that up, because the food you eat is going to be the fuel for your body. And this food is powdered food, which is not what you're going to find in nature. This is very much processed food, and the ideal diet is lots of unprocessed foods, lots of whole foods, and this is not that. On the pro side, these powders can make for some really tasty treats that satisfy cravings, and they're going to have really good macronutrients. So these are all protein powders, right? So protein powders, a lot of protein, not a lot of carbs, not a lot of fat. And so a lot of people want to increase the amount of protein in their diet, and so this is a great way to do that. Protein is going to be great for helping your body recover, rebuild muscle, and then also really helps with satiety. So this can be really great for weight control, especially when you consider, you might be having this protein ice cream instead of the alternative, which could be a lot higher calorie. Protein powder can also be really good for increasing the amount of protein in your diet, especially if you're an athlete. And for me, I kind of looked at the amount of protein I was consuming and decided I needed to up it a little bit. So I'm a vegetarian, and that's part of the reason I have all these vegan powders, is I'm trying to consume less animal products in my life, and I just needed a little bit more protein to go with the amount of activity I have. And I definitely feel a little bit stronger since incorporating protein supplementation into my life. I've tried making ice cream with all these different vegan powders, but none of them seem to really come out with the same texture as their whey counterparts, and they always seem to be a little bit gritty or a little bit icy, or just less smooth and creamy than the whey varieties. Fortunately though, I found another really good use for a lot of these vegan powders, and that's putting them in oatmeal. And that's why I have all these tubs of Ghost powder, is their peanut butter flavor and their Cinnabon flavor to me is just really, really good in oatmeal. And I'll have a link to another video where I talk about that a little bit more, somewhere in the description, maybe up on the screen here as well. But there's two brands of this vegan protein powder that I found to have the most promise in the Ninja CREAMI, and that is going to be Dimetize and Kachava. And both of these have a little bit smoother of a texture. They have some good flavor into them as well, but overall they just seem to work the best in the CREAMI. Not quite the same level as Whey, but if you're looking to go with a vegan powder, these are what I'd recommend. And both of them, their protein comes from a variety of different sources. Pea protein is the primary. They also have brown rice protein, and then some different seeds to form the rest of their protein blends, which I'm not sure if that's the special combination or how these are processed or what, but they both come out a little bit more creamy. So the protein powders in them is about where the commonalities end between the two of these though. Dimetize is a rather inexpensive protein, and it's got a lot of other things in common with these other ones here. So there's stevia and monk fruit extract are the sweeteners in this. There's no sugar in it, and then they comes in vanilla and chocolate flavors. And the vanilla is a pretty clean flavor. It works well with fruit, and chocolate is kind of like a brownie. Now Kachava though, this stuff is a whole different animal, and it's marketed as a superfood that's a meal replacement. It's expensive, and a full serving of this would be 2 scoops totaling 62 grams, 240 calories. That's a lot of powder to put in an individual pint, and so I normally put in about 3/4 of a serving, or 1.5 scoops in a pint here. So the ingredients in this stuff is very clean. It's a plant-based protein blend, omega-3 and fiber blend, antioxidants, and then for sweeteners, it has actual factual sugar in it, along with some monk fruit extract as well. So there's a total of 7 grams of sugar in a serving of this, while most of this other stuff is all just artificial sweeteners or stevia and monk fruit. The flavor of this stuff is a little bit less indulgent than some of the others, but it kind of tastes a little bit healthy, which can be kind of nice every once in a while. So I'll have a whole nother video about Kachava in the CREAMI, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. Onto our dairy-based proteins, there are a lot of good options, and I've enjoyed pretty much all of these up here. They do come out a little bit different though, and I want to help you find what's going to be best for you for your own taste preferences. Now obviously the flavors up here, there's a lot of different ones, and they're all going to come out a little bit different, but we're going to get to that. But first I want to start out with our texture. And the texture of these is largely going to be driven by the type of protein in each of these. And they're all dairy-based proteins, but there are a few different types of dairy proteins. And they all kind of exist on this spectrum, where casein is going to make for a little bit thicker of ice cream, and it's a little bit harder to digest. And then there's a spectrum going all the way up to whey isolates, which are going to be easier to digest and a little bit lighter of ice cream. So casein, we have a few different brands up here that have about half of the protein source is going to be from casein, and that's again going to help keep you fuller longer, and that's going to be Quest and PE Science. And I've really enjoyed both of them. PE Science is normally what I buy for people that are just trying to get into using the CREAMI, but I don't think you're going to be disappointed with either. The sweeteners in the two of these are a bit different though, and for you that should probably be the tiebreaker, or maybe the flavor that works best for you. So always pay attention to how you feel after this stuff. Are you feeling good? Are you feeling bloated? And if so, maybe you're having a hard time digesting this stuff, at which point you might want to look towards some of the easier to digest proteins, and that's going to include your isolates. And isolates are considered to be higher quality protein sources because there's been some extra processing done to isolate the protein and remove things like fat or some of the lactose from it. And that's also going to make it a little bit easier to digest this protein. It's also going to make it a little bit less satisfying, so you might feel less full, a little bit less long. So isolates are going to make for a lighter ice cream. More air is going to get whipped into them, and it's going to have more like a soft serve type texture. Clean Simple Eats here and Dimetize, both of them use only isolates as far as I know. Clean Simple Eats has a ton of different flavors, and they have sample packs. I didn't check every single one, but I think they only use isolates. And all those sample packs are kind of cool. They are using some different ingredients in their stuff, and than the rest of the competition, but they are kind of a little bit more expensive, where Dimetize is a little bit more affordable than the Clean Simple Eats. But one thing I really do like on Clean Simple Eats is they put them in a plastic bag instead of these giant plastic tubs, and I mean, come on, y'all, plastic recycling is, not the most effective thing for the planet. And, it also doesn't take up a quarter of your pantry with this stuff. So anyways, there's a lot of different brands that use a combination of both isolates and whey concentrates. And there's this one up here called Podium that I recently tried, and it's really good. Premier Protein is another really solid one. It's not very expensive either. I've enjoyed that. This brand here, Rise, this is a company I hadn't heard of until recently, and they do a lot of these different collabs with different brands. So this is Skippy Peanut Butter, and this is a Jet Puff Marshmallow down here. This marshmallow is a really good flavor for just a flavor base that combines really well with a whole bunch of stuff. The peanut butter is really good as well. So Ghost is another brand that does a lot of these flavor collabs. And while I have a lot of these Ghost powders, I'm not actually a huge fan of their whey protein in the CREAMI. And the reason for that is really the dosage. So all their flavors are really on point. Chips Ahoy tastes like Chips Ahoy. Nutter Butter tastes like Nutter Butter. But the problem is you have to get it in this concentrated dose, and you're gonna have to use probably 2 scoops of protein powder in your pint, or maybe even more. So to understand why that is, if you look at the directions on the label, it says mix each scoop with 5 to 6 ounces of beverage of your choice. So it's intended to be taken in this really concentrated dose, and if you dilute it, it just doesn't make for very good ice cream. So really that dosage thing, that applies to any type of protein up here. And I found that any brand that says, combined with 8 to 10 ounces of water or liquid is, it's gonna make for a fine ice cream, maybe with just a single scoop or maybe like 1 1/4 scoops. One flavor of protein that doesn't ever seem to work in the CREAMI is cookies and cream flavor. And as is, some of these powders, they have little chunks of cookie in them, and they just get pulverized when you run it through the CREAMI. So if you're looking for that flavor, what I'd recommend doing is using either this marshmallow flavor or vanilla, and then just adding a couple Oreos with a mix-in at the end. Now there are a few flavors up here that are based on a branded product. For example, this Dymatize blend is Fruity Pebbles flavor. And the flavors of these branded products are weirdly really on point. So if you're looking for something that's like a generic fruity base to use in a fruit CREAMI, don't buy this. You are gonna get hit over the head with that flavor, and it really does taste like Fruity Pebbles. So if you like that, you're gonna like this flavor. Another thing is, when making vanilla protein, don't add vanilla extract. I don't know why, but it doesn't seem to really improve the ice cream at all. And actually, I think it kind of makes it worse. If you're looking for more of a vanilla flavoring, you're gonna wanna use vanilla bean paste. If you happen to buy a protein flavor that just isn't working for you, you might be able to save it either by adding cocoa powder or powdered peanut butter. If using cocoa powder, make sure it's the dark stuff, and you can use up to 2 tablespoons of this with your powder. If you're going this route, you should try blooming your cocoa powder sometime. And to do that, all you need to do is boil a 1/4 cup of water or maybe some hot milk, mix in your cocoa powder, and then add your other ingredients. And for me, that makes my cocoa powder taste a little bit more complex and just brings some nice flavor elements into it. My go-to recipe for all of these powders normally looks like this: 1 heaping scoop of protein powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum, 1/3 cup of cottage cheese, 2 tablespoons of coffee creamer, and then almond milk to the fill line. Of course, you can tweak these numbers as much as you want to your preference, and you can also add things like the cocoa or peanut butter powder. I also like using an immersion blender since it really helps mix everything up evenly and also whip some air into the pint. If using dairy, you might decide that you don't want the cottage cheese, and personally, when I use dairy milk, I usually leave out the cottage cheese, and then I'll go with a 50-50 split of dairy and almond milk. If you don't use cottage cheese, I'd also recommend using a little bit more xanthan gum or stabilizer. That's gonna help with those smaller ice crystals and a little bit more creamy texture. Coffee creamer is another optional ingredient in my recipe, and if you want to leave it out, go for it. You might want to add a little bit more protein powder or some other sweetener to it, because this is going to help with the flavor and the sweetness of your ice cream as well. I think that's everything. Let me know in the comments if there was stuff that I missed, and maybe I'll do another video like this. And since you made it to the end of the video, do me a solid, hit the like and subscribe button. And there's links to everything in the description. There's some other resources down there as well. There's some other videos by me on the screen, and thank you for watching.